G'day mates, welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm doing my much asked for guide on how to avoid W keys and how to do well in tournaments that aren't very stacked. So we have solo FNCS coming up, we have solo cash cups, and we have the Booger Cup. All these tournaments are gonna be insanely aggressive as their opens, and I wanna teach you how you can survive that aggression. I'm not gonna teach you just to box up, I wanna show you how to make smart rotations and put yourself in the right position so that you either survive till endgame or the fights that you take will be so much more successful and so much easier. So I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you do, please chuck a like on it. I appreciate it so much. Let me know in the comment section down below what kind of guide you want me to do next. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It would mean the world to me. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I just want to take an example of an early game drop that you might have. It's a pretty common drop, Misty Meadows with a far zone, and how I would rotate it if I was trying to play safe to get to dead side of zone. Now, I know dead side of zone is starting to become a bit of a gimmick. It sounds almost like peace control. Everyone who makes Fortnite VOD reviews, everyone who is a commentator, analyst, we're all talking about it. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Dead side of zone is just very simply put, the part of zone that has the least amount of players on it. Why is that important? Because it means that you're going to run into less people, but it means that when you go there and you take fights, you're not going to get third partied as badly. So I want you to prioritize dead side of zone as much as possible in your opens tournaments if you're going safe for placements. But also, if you're playing consistently and you're playing a little bit aggressive when you get to dead side, you will pick up so much easier eliminations. Dead side of zone is not just if you're playing for placement. If you want to play consistently, pick up eliminations and reduce a lot of the RNG in Fortnite right now, dead side of zone is the place to be. This is also because it's on the far side of map normally, which means you've got less chance of getting marauders as well because they're not towards that central part of the map. So things like marauders rolling up when you're having a fight, other players rolling up when you're having a fight, just all those elements of RNG get reduced so much if you're on dead side of zone. So let's say you dropped Misty Meadows, zone shows up here. How would I rotate that if I was trying to get to dead side? It would look something like this. Again, I'm using Fortnite.gg. If you want to use it, you can draw maps, you can do whatever. So let's say I dropped here at Misty Meadows. I would try and prioritize getting as much loot as I can, because if you're going to start going to dead side, you're not going to get as much loot. You need to be looted before you get there. You're also rotating early, so you need to be very efficient with how you loot. So I would loot these houses, depending on if a player dropped up here or not, or depending on who dropped on me, I might have to eliminate one or two people. Again, dropping it a pretty contested POI to get one or two eliminations on the board is actually a really good strategy, even if you're a passive player, because those are the easiest elims on the map. They're the easiest ones to get because it has the most RNG. You get a better gun, you take them out. So then I would start rotating. The reason why I would rotate through areas like this is to try and get my hard mats up. Try and get some of that brick, try and get some of that metal, but it's also farming brick and metal that's quite safe because you're inside a house. And there's also almost next to no one out here unless they already dropped here. So just check out, suss it out. From here, I would look off the high ground. Do I see players around? Is there anyone in this area? No. Okay, I can farm some metal and brick. Then I would make my way through this drop again, same reason, and then I would hit the geyser. Use the geyser to try and get as far past all these areas of lots of congestion, and I would try and not get contested and try and rotate around. Anyone who comes out of Fortilla or around these areas is going to be pretty stacked and they're going to be pretty decent. So this would be my area to try and avoid fighting at all costs. Try and rotate through it as quick as possible. And also, if you take a fight, say here, for example, there's a very good chance you're going to get third-partied from all these different directions. So once I get through there, though, and I start to box up somewhere like this is where you can start to look to take some fights. You could just sit in a bush or you could just box up if you really wanted to here, but this is where I would try to be a little bit more aggressive, try and find your eliminations now. You're getting towards mid-game, you've invested a lot of time in the game, so you don't want to be stupid, but if you're going to try and qualify out of an open tournament right now, you need to get some eliminations. You're not going to get it on just placement. But the reason why you're maybe not as confident as a player in opens tournaments is because you're running into aggressive W keys, you're getting third party, and you're fighting good players. Get to dead side, try to identify some weak opponents and get your eliminations on them. So the reason why this dead side is so important, so say you're here. The reason why I didn't travel all the way up to here is because sometimes when you travel too long, you're wasting too much time when you could be getting a couple easier limbs on some weaker opponents. But also, the more you travel, the more likely you're going to get shot and get sprayed out before you get somewhere from someone hiding. So I would get in here. The reason why dead side of zone is so important is, let's say now zone kind of next zone pulls somewhere. Now this is always hard to draw on the map. Let's say zone pulls somewhere like up there like that. You've now got such an easy rotate into zone where how many people are realistically going to be here? And even if they are here and you've killed one or two of them, you've conditioned your rotate. You've gotten eliminations and conditioned where you're going to go. So you can now just easy breezy come in around sweaty. Let's just say like you keep going here. Let's just go like, let's start here. You come up this way. Now, this is getting towards endgame where you really want to start dialing back your fights because you've invested a lot of time in this game. You could still take, if there's someone over here, you could take a fight there because I guarantee almost no one's going to be around to third party you, but this is where you might want to start playing safe to get your placement points. Now you're in and you've had a great rotate for the next zone as well. And now if the zone pulls, let's say you now get a bad zone, right? Because again, you know, you're not going to get good zones. You've had a couple bad zones, right? Let's say a zone pulls up like there. Now, you've again got such an easy rotate because you're already on dead side. You're over here. So now you get to kind of maybe go through the island and then come in at the edge of the island and build up there. It's because you're on dead side that you're going to run into less people. Let's try and run this. Let's run this back like most people would do it. Let's look at this rotate as if you were like anyone else just playing the game. You start off somewhere down here. You get a couple of fights. And then when you leave, you start beelining. You just want to get to zone, right? So maybe you go over here. There could be a player there. Maybe you get something. You kind of go here for a bit of loot. You go over here and then you set up there. Let's say that was your normal rotate. You've beelined it into zone. You're going to have catty corners rotating this way. You're going to have lazy lakes rotating this way. You're going to have the rest of Misty rotating this way. You're going to have people in this area rotating up here. And not only that, though, even if you make this rotate safely, let's look at the next zone. Next zone goes here like we talked about. Now, what have you got to do? You've either got to rotate back down here and cut across all these people down here that are already going to be rotating up now from this area that you avoided because you rotated quicker last time, or worse, you're going to have to go over this way and you're going to have to go past Authority, maybe Salty Springs, and like kind of come in over here. Do you see what I mean about dead side of zone? Do you see how much uglier this rotate starts to look with how many people you're going to run into? Authority's going to run into you. Salty's going to run into you. This entire half of the map is going to run into you. Dead side of zone is not just about the first zone, it's about your future zones and how you make it into endgame more safely. It's something you need to think about when you look at your rotates. Sometimes going further away from zone now will give you so much of a better position to make endgame later. This is why dead side is so important. I've been wanting to make this video for a while. I hope I haven't lost you because it's just been 6 minutes of me talking with maps up, but it is one of the most important things you can learn about Fortnite. You need to learn how to make rotates like this. If you do, I guarantee your placement and consistency will go through the roof. And this isn't just for passive players. Like I said, if you get dead side, W keying becomes easier. There's less opponents, but that means you have less chance of getting third partied. The current meta fights are very slow to finish out. If you can take your time to close it out, you're going to be a lot more effective and you're going to win a lot more fights. Your ultimate key when playing safe and playing for endgame for placements in W key tournaments is going to be what you prioritize in your loadout. You've accepted that you're not going to be playing super hard keying. You're not going to be running 4 weapons or 3 weapons and 2 meds. What I want you to run is 2 weapons, a utility, maybe even 2 utility if you have the chance, and 1 med or 2 meds. So ideal loadout, in my opinion, would be an AR and your shotgun of choice. I don't mind if you use charge tack, whatever you feel better with. And then you're going to either run crash pads and peppers, or both if you find both, which is fantastic. And then either 1 or 2 meds, depending on if you're running peppers as well. So ideal loadout. Let's just say green AR, blue tack, crash pads, slurp splashes, and minis. That's an amazing loadout. That's going to be your safe loadout. You need to carry some form of mobility. I'm going to show you in a few minutes why crash pads are so amazing in my opinion, but if you don't carry mobility and someone aggressively W keys on you, in the current meta, you're going to have next to no chance of disengaging. You need that mobility to get away from them, and I think crash pads are the best form of that right now. Don't carry a shotgun, an AR, a sniper, and an AR if you're trying to avoid fights. What's the point? It serves you no good. Also, when you get to endgame, those extra meds and that extra utility is going to do you a lot more good than an SMG or a sniper will anyway. So you're then going to get more eliminations or more consistent placements later. Prioritize your loadout around what your gameplay style is. Carry mobility, carry extra meds, maybe even a harpoon. So if you start rotating dead side and you see some fishing holes, you fish up along the way. Carry utility, not weapons. Now, as much as this is a guide to early and mid game in unstacked lobbies, I'm focusing not around W King. Obviously, I wanted this to cater towards you guys who are trying to get more placements and trying to play more consistent. If you have god tier mechanics and you can drop 20 bombs, obviously drop 20 bombs and you're going to place. That's how open formats work. But those of you who are more passive still need to learn how to get those free eliminations and need to learn who to fight and when to fight. So I've already talked about fighting on dead side. Now we're going to talk about other early and mid game fights. When you're taking an early mid game fight, try to leave yourself with a disengagement option if something goes wrong, and try to surprise your opponent. Be aware of your surroundings. Try to go through areas that have high verticality so you can see around you and control what's going on. I mentioned in my rotation that I would say look up before I go to an area that's a house, make sure no one's in it, make sure no one's around it. Just have that control. When you're opening up your fights, try to open up with at least 1 or 2 heavy tags at a close to medium range. Get as close as you can without the opponent seeing you to get your easy tags. But if you get super, super close and you miss, or they're a good opponent, you now don't have that disengage option. If you're like maybe, let's say 10, 20 meters, 20, 30 feet above someone on verticality, and they're about 20, 30 feet away or 10, 20 meters away, you can then beam them. But if you don't beam them and you miss your shots, they box up and they look good, you can start disengaging away. You have verticality. Maybe use 1 or 2 crash pads, turn around and pop them, which I'm going to show you later in the video. Try to get away from them. Try to get away so that you have that disengagement potential, and then keep rotating. It's going to be when you take those fights that are all or nothing, where you don't see someone coming or is real close range that you can't get away from, they're the ones that are going to screw you. Now, prioritizing high ground in a fight in early and mid game, you all know this has been in Fortnite since forever, is great. But one thing I see players doing way too much is they get high ground, they sit above, and they start spraying and taking the fight slow. If you're on top of someone and you can't disengage, no matter how passive you are, you need to end that fight quickly. In the game right now, if you take too long to end a fight, you are going to get third-partied. Marauders are going to show up, someone's going to hit a geyser, someone's going to caddy on your head, and you're going to die. Also, if you're sitting up and taking AR shots, make sure you don't get headshot sniped. I know that box fighting might not be your strongest tactic. That's why you're trying to watch a video like this for more passive players. But if you get into the point where you need to, you're in a fight and you can't get away, you can't disengage, try to end that fight quickly. Even if you die, at least you then have the chance to play another game. If you have a long drawn out fight, you might win that fight, but you're going to die very soon when someone pushes you. You need to learn to end your fights quickly. Keep going through these rotation paths that I've talked about earlier today. Make sure you get to dead side and get away from that aggressive W King and get away from those third parties. That's what slow fights do. If I hear 500 AR shots over a hill, you know I'm heading straight for that to try and third party it. If a fight breaks out and it's closed in 30 seconds before I get there, I'm less likely to engage, or maybe I'm not even there in time. You need to learn how to close fights out quickly. Maybe carry stink grenades if you have the chance. Maybe carry RPGs. Try and carry some of those weapons that use as utility, not just meds like I talked about earlier, if you're going to take some of those fights. But don't run things like snipers or SMGs if you're trying to close out a fight quickly at close range. Try to use something that makes the fight open up a lot faster. When setting up endgame, no matter where you are on the map, or even mid-game, early game, there's a few considerations I want you to take. Verticality, disengagement potential, and sightlines. So let's talk about verticality. Try and set up somewhere on the map that's going to have you higher up so you can see further for sightlines, and then you have a better chance to disengage. So let's say you're going to set up on the mountain that's maybe near Lazy Lake. Big verticality, you're not dead side. Obviously, you're going to probably have to run into a few opponents, but it gives you some opportunity to disengage. So if I was looking where to set up and I was somewhere near Lazy Lakes, I'd want to set up close to the bridge because I have the ability to get a boat. I have the geyser. I have verticality so I can disengage with crash pads or peppers, and then I can get away quicker with sightlines because I can see who's coming for me and where they're coming from. Also, if you're boxing up, do not box up in soft mats. Do not box up in wood. Box up in metal or brick. This stops you from getting naded. It stops you from getting RPG'd. It stops you from getting sprayed, but it also makes you look like a better opponent. If I see someone boxed up in wood on second zone, I'm assuming they're a bot. I'm assuming they're a bad player, and I'm going to key them for 3 points. This goes to my next point. Try to avoid boxing up when possible. I know this goes against you trying to play passive. Most people want to get to a position and box up. But like I just said, the pros that are in these lobbies, because it's open, they're looking for people to key. They want to find people who are boxing up early because they know that they're passive. Even though you have the advantage now, if you don't land a couple of really good tags before they get up to your box, you're going to struggle now. Try to hide in a bush. Try to go inside a building and sit inside a metal or brick cone. It sounds like it sounds like a pansy strategy, but it works. It's going to make people not find you. That's the point. If you're trying to go consistent for placements in a W key lobby and you're not comfortable fighting, you need to go without being found. But again, try to prioritize the dead side rotate so you don't have to box up in a congested area. Because if you box up dead side and you can see everyone coming for you, there's no one around, you don't have to worry as much about this. But if you're going to box up, that's definitely things you need to consider. Don't just box up anywhere. I just want to give you some quick tips and tricks around using crash pads. They're not insanely complicated. I know they're not a ridiculous mechanic to use. Just double press space or double press jump or throw them down. But it's how people use them, especially endgame, that I see going very wrong. So I see a lot of people, they're boxed up, whatever, it's endgame, they're inside their box. And for some reason, they'll go to use a crash pad in solos and they'll do like a weird like rotated floor or stair, and then they'll throw the crash pad on the stair and that's how they rotate. I don't see why that's necessary. Honestly, one of the best things you can do with crash pads, this is early, mid, or late game, is when you're inside your box, say someone's trying to break your wall and you have the edited cone, or maybe you have a stair, whatever it is, as they're breaking in or just end game, one of the best ways to rotate with crash pads is just throwing them on the half stair. If you throw them on a stair or edited cone, you're just going to go just as far, but it's so much more secure. You don't have to go outside your box. If someone's keying you in early and mid game, that's how you can disengage as well without them having any chance to shoot you until you leave the box. Also, if they're on your wall, they're not going to be able to see you now past the crash pad and the wall. So it gives you like a really nice defensible position. The last thing I want to talk about, other than just how you use the crash pads inside your box, is something that seems very simple, but I don't see people doing it. If you're getting keyed mid game and you're using crash pads, pop the crash pads as you go. It's hard to demonstrate in creative because I can't do double space to throw the crash pad more than once. So I can double space to throw it, but I can't double space again. But the premise is very simple. After you use your first crash pad, turn around and pop the old one and then throw a new one and keep going. Because now the player can't follow you. They can't use the first crash pad. So they can't catch up to you. So you're now going to disengage and you're away. It's an insanely easy way to disengage in fights. Right now, I've already talked about it. We don't have shadow bombs. We don't have shockwaves. We don't have ways to disengage from a lot of fights. Crash pads is going to be your way. Turn around and pop them as you go. It's really, really simple and it's really, really effective. All right, guys, that does it for another video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did and you got this far, again, please chuck a like on the video. Let me know in the comment section down below which guide you want me to do next. I read all of them. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so. I'd appreciate it heaps. And yeah, thank you just so much for enjoying another video. I'll see you in the next one.